Hello students, I'm Vipul Mittal, and in this session I will discuss how you determine grouping level for impairment testing of long-lived tangible asset, that is property, plant and equipment. So you guys know that impairment testing is not done at individual level, but impairment testing is done at group level. So you group the assets at a particular level. So you group the assets and liabilities and then do impairment testing for the group. You do not do impairment testing for an individual asset. You do impairment testing for the entire group. Now, how you determine that group? At what level you do that grouping? That's the question that we have. So, impairment testing is done at group level, and you group all the assets and liabilities, and then you perform impairment testing. And when you group all the assets and liabilities, you call that asset group. Now, how you determine grouping level? At what level you group assets and liabilities? It is the lowest level for which identifiable cash flows are largely independent. So we are talking about independent cash flows. At what level you have independent cash flows? Lowest level. So lowest level at which you have independent cash flows, that is the level at which you do grouping of assets and liabilities and do impairment testing. You are not doing impairment testing of an individual asset. You are doing impairment testing for the entire group. And this group is the lowest level in the organization for which you have independent cash flows that can be identified independently, independent of other assets and liabilities of the organization. So you group assets at the lowest level for which identifiable cash flows are independent of other assets and liabilities. Let's take an example of an entity that has global operations. Its operations are in various continents. The top level is head office. Then the next level is 7 continents. Then it is further broken down into various countries. Those countries are broken down into various cities. Now, at what level you have to do grouping of assets and liabilities? You have to do grouping of assets and liabilities at head office level, where you group all the assets and liabilities globally, or you group assets and liabilities at continent level. That is, you are grouping assets and liabilities for Europe. Then you're grouping assets and liabilities for Africa. You're grouping assets and liabilities for Asia and doing impairment testing at Europe level. You're doing impairment testing at Asia level. Is that? Or you have independent cash flows at country level. So in that case, if you have independent cash flows at country level, then you have independent cash flows for India. You have independent cash flows for USA. You have independent cash flows for New Zealand. So impairment testing is done for each country separately. But there is another possibility that you have independent cash flows at city level. Then for every city, grouping is done and impairment testing is done at city level. If in US, operations are in 3 cities, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, then grouping of assets is done at city level. Again, you have to determine what is the lowest level for which you have independent cash flows that are independent of other assets and liabilities, cash flows that can be independently identified. So you have to determine in this example that whether you have to do impairment testing at city level, or is it country level, or is it continent level, or is it head office level, that is global level. But yes, impairment testing is not done for any individual asset. It is done for all the assets in a particular group. Do watch more videos on impairment testing to get a complete understanding. We'll connect again. Goodbye.